Guys, Gina here, and welcome back to my channel, and welcome to another recovery update. So back in the summertime, I opened up to you guys and shared with you guys I do struggle with an eating disorder. So I have been struggling with bulimia for the past 17 years, and I also struggle with binge eating and emotional eating. So I opened up to you guys about that quite some months ago, and since then I have joined a step study at my church through Celebrate Recovery. So it's very similar to a 12-step program in AA or any other like Narcotics Anonymous. So it is a very heavy and commitment-based program to help you win your addiction, basically. So the first two lessons were all on denial, which I will have those videos linked below if you guys want to get caught up. But the gist of what my recovery plan is, I attend Celebrate Recovery on Friday nights. So we listen to a message or we listen to a testimony, and then we go to our small group. So I go to the food issues groups, and we sit around a circle, and then we share how our week's going, if we're having any struggles, if we have any victories, and it's just a way for us to be support to one another, because it's a lot easier to go through something like this knowing that there's someone else out there similar to you and they understand. So that's what I do. And then on top of that, I joined a step study. So this is about an 18-month commitment every single Monday night. And I sit in a similar group, but the group I sit in, it's women with mixed issues. So we have different ages, we have different hang-ups, we have people who are alcoholics, people who are drug addicts, people who are codependent. Like there's not one issue in that group. So it's mind-blowing to listen to the women around the room talk about everything they're struggling with. So we are still currently in step number 1. So step 1 in the recovery process is to admit we are powerless over our addiction and compulsive behaviors, that our lives have become unmanageable. So what I'm going to do is go through the questions that I needed to do tonight, because I need to be discussing. So part of the reason why I come on here and do these videos for you guys is because it keeps me accountable for the work that I need to do to make sure I am ready on Monday nights. And it gives you guys a way to go ahead and pray with me through my group. So I upload at 7 p.m. on Monday nights because that is the time that I'm actually in my group. So I feel like that's the best time for me to ask for a prayer from you guys. So I'm going to go through a little acrostic of the word powerless, because we're on lesson 2, which is powerless. So the first letter is P, which stands for pride. So ignorance, power, pride equals a deadly mixture. So how many of you guys have been too prideful to admit that you've been wrong, too prideful to admit you maybe have a problem, and in the end of it, it just makes you very defensive? I have been there. I am a huge pride person, and I 100% resonate with that one. So the next letter is O. Our only ifs in life keep us trapped in a fantasy land of rationalization. So if only I went to this school, maybe I would have had this life. Or what if I married this person? Maybe I would have had this life. Stuff like that. The next letter is W, which is worry. Worry is a form of not trusting God enough, and that is so crucial, you guys. How many of you guys are out there worrying about every little thing but not actually turning to God? Like that one is huge, because in Genesis, the birds didn't wonder where their food were going to come from. Like they knew that God was going to provide for them. The next letter is E, escape. By living in denial, we have escaped into a world of fantasy and unrealistic expectations of ourselves and others. The big part of this one is the unrealistic expectation of ourselves and others. So especially for me in the food issues group and like body image, me having an unrealistic expectation of what my body should look like, how much weight I should be losing, specifically that. So I struggle with that so much. Like, oh, I've been on this diet, I should be losing this amount of weight. And just having that unrealistic expectation. I mean, I'm a mom of 3. I've had 3 kids. Like my body isn't what it was before I had kids. It's just biologically not there. But so I think giving myself a little bit of grace after having 3 kids, I need to love myself a little bit more than I do. Resentments. So the next letters are resentments. Resentments act like an emotional cancer if they are allowed to fester and grow. This is so huge, you guys. Emotional cancer. Being resentful is like emotional cancer. Congratulations. In your admission of your powerlessness, you have begun the journey of recovery that will allow you to accept the true and only high powers Jesus Christ's healing love and forgiveness. At this stage of your recovery, you need to stop doing two things. Number one, stop denying the pain. You're ready to take the first step in your recovery when your pain is greater than your fears. Pretty much when you're just had enough, you're right where you need to be. Number two, you need to stop playing God. You are unable to do for yourself what you need God to do for you. You are either going to serve God or yourself. You can't serve both. So you cannot go down your path and forget God's path. The only path that you can be going down is God's path. So there's only one path for you to go down. So number one, start admitting your powerlessness. As you work the first principle, you will see that by yourself, you do not have the power to change your hurts, hangups, or habits. Number two, start admitting that your life has become unmanageable. You can finally start admitting that some or all areas of your life are out of control and need to change. So this is really big. So now we go through some questions. So we were told to go through 1 through 4. So those are the questions I'm going to go through with you guys. And if you guys aren't comfortable dropping a comment below, like sharing maybe an addiction you have or a hurt or a hang up that you're dealing with, like feel free to just message me. And you guys are great subscribers, great support system, and I see nothing but positive comments in the comment section. So always feel free to drop a comment, just letting us know how you're doing and if we can be praying for you. So number one, in the questions, list some ways that your pride has stopped you from asking and getting the help you need to overcome your hurts, hangups, and habits. So for me, it took me 17 years to seek help. I was ashamed of telling the truth, especially with me having a job in social media where I'm putting myself on camera every day, filming for you guys, like the need of me needing to be, polished and clean and perfect and go into CVS and act like everything was okay. Like everything wasn't okay. I was literally physically sick. So that was really hard. I'm also in a leadership role over at the church. So I lead a group of women every single Tuesday in our moms group, and just having this weighing on my chest of what I was really going through, but not really having the courage to actually tell the women at my table what I was dealing with was really difficult. But I did open up to them last semester, so that's been really nice. And I am able to then have that support with those women as well. Also, like people that don't really know me, like at kinder pickup, or people, like I said, who don't know that I struggle with an eating disorder, they have this assumption like I am super mom because I do YouTube and I keep my house clean and everything else. My house isn't clean right now, but most of the time I keep my house clean. So on the outside, it looks like I have everything together, but I really don't. So that's been really difficult in terms of having this image online of, yeah, I'm perfect, but then I really not. Okay, so number two is, what in your past has caused you to have the following if onlys? If only I had stopped. So for me, this is really big for me to talk about because it's something that I hold a lot of guilt on. And for me, I feel like if I had only stopped binge and purging when I was pregnant, then maybe I wouldn't have gotten gestational diabetes. And for me, I got gestational diabetes with my third, and I held a lot of guilt with that because there was a lot of complications that could happen to Tanner, which is my youngest, so I put him at risk, as well as gestational diabetes putting me at risk as well. So I had a lot of guilt when it came to that. So for me, actually admitting that out loud was really difficult because it's something that I've been carrying for a long time, of the guilt of me feeling like, oh my gosh, like I may have self-induced this, which, there's a highly likelihood of me doing that with how much I was eating. Because even if you're throwing stuff up, like you're still getting that glucose in your body, and me having the amount of glucose and carbohydrates and sugar that I was taking in like a single sitting, there's no surprise that I ended up with gestational diabetes. So that's been really difficult. So number three, instead of worrying about things that we cannot control, we need to focus on what God can do in our lives. What are you worrying about and why? Well, I have 3 kids, so I am constantly worrying about finances, of their college in the future and making sure we pay our mortgage and like everything like that, because living where I live in the area I live, like it's very, very expensive. So I worry about that. And my husband is a business owner, so I think to myself, oh my God, what happens if, something happens to Chris? Yes, I have life insurance, but that can only go so far. So I'm starting to get my ducks in a row in terms of creating a plan of what am I going to do after, because my YouTube channel isn't going to support myself and 3 kids in South Orange County. It's just not going to happen. But I am creating ways for me to be able to support myself if something like that did happen. But I am also very thankful to have a very supportive and willing to help family. If something did happen, I would not be left to hang to dry. All right, so the last question we're going to address is, in what ways have you tried to escape your past pains, and be specific? So something that was really damaging emotionally in my early 20s was when I was between 21 and 24. So I had a boyfriend at that time, and we were in a, I guess biracial would be the right, I think that's the right terminology. So I had a boyfriend, and he is Korean, and obviously I am not. So he came from a very traditional Korean family, and they did not approve of me. And nor did he. Like, I felt like he never loved me for who I was. So the first time we broke up, he broke up with me because he said I was too overweight. And then he changed his mind, and then that very same day he's like, oh, never mind, I still like you, so we can still keep a relationships. But that was only maybe 6 months in, and I was super young, and the thought of being broken up with was devastating to me at the time. But then our relationship continued to progress, and he broke with me a second time because I had gained some weight. So 2 times he had broken up with me because I had gained weight. So with me already having food issues, that was just heartbreaking to me. So I had also, prior to this relationship, I was actually married for about 9 months. So I got married at 21, and then I was divorced at 22. So I might be a little off in these dates. So I think it might have been from the age of 22 to 24. I think that was probably what it was. But anyways, and it came out to his parents, who are very conservative. His dad is a pastor of a church, a Korean church in Las Vegas. And when they found out that I had been married before and then divorced, I was blacklisted from that family. Prior to that, his mom loved me. Prior to that, his sister loved me too, and everything was fine. And we were talking about wedding plans, and they were asking me, oh, are you okay having a Korean wedding? I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever. I just want to marry this guy. But then once they found out that I had been married, it was like that, and they literally hated me. And this went on for about a good year and a half, and I was in a state where I was with someone whose family didn't approve of me, and that was just really difficult. And it came to the point to where they brought in a prophecy to talk to their son, and the prophet had prophesied that if he had married me, that we were going to have 1 child together, and then I was going to get really fat after that, and then we were going to end up divorced. So at that point, I was like, oh my God, a prophecy prophesies that about me. So at that point I was very angry with God. I'm like, really, God? I'm gonna get divorced because I got fat? That's what I was really thinking. And that was a really difficult time for me emotionally, as well as in my spiritual walk with God. At that time I was just angry. At that time in my life I was just very angry at God. So that is something that I really don't talk about a lot. But it's definitely something that has brought a lot of pain. But how I tried to escape from that past pain was immediately after that relationship had ended, I jumped into new relationships. So I was literally dating people like back-to-back dates. I got myself on eHarmony, I got myself on Match, and I had dates every single day. I didn't pay for a meal for a month. And I was just seeking that comfort. I was seeking that companionship. I was seeking that affection. I was seeking that approval from the wrong source, obviously. But eHarmony wasn't completely bad because I did meet my husband after all. And I didn't even read this question when this thought popped into my head when I was running. And if I was ever to run into my ex-boyfriend that I was talking about, I would thank him. I would thank him for breaking up with me, because if that didn't happen, then I wouldn't have the life I have right now. I wouldn't have the husband I have right now. I wouldn't have the kids I have right now. So if there's anything I can learn from that, it would be thank you for that not working out, because God's plan was better than the plan I thought I had. So this is everything I'm going to share with you guys in today's update in terms of my recovery update. So if you guys have any questions at all, just please drop them below. I'm actually going to go through our pamphlet of food issues next update. So maybe you guys are thinking like, oh, I didn't know I had this. Like, I'm going to start reading the pamphlets of the different like recovery groups and like issue groups, and maybe you guys will be listening to it and say, oh wow, I totally resonate with that, or whoa, I had no clue I had food issues, or oh, I had no clue I was codependent. Like, there's a lot of stuff that comes about if you sit in these recovery groups. So I hope you guys have a fantastic day with whatever you are doing. Fantastic evening. Thank you guys so much for letting me just sit here and, share my recovery with you guys. This is really therapeutic for me. This is really helpful to me in terms of sitting down and talking about my feelings, because I hate talking about my feelings. It's one of the worst things I hate doing. I hate talking about my feelings. I'm fine talking about other people's feelings. If they're having a hard time, I am like the first one to help talk it out with them. But when the question's pointed over to me and they're like, oh, how are you doing? I clam up and I like don't want to talk about it. So I appreciate you guys so much, and I will talk to you guys all later. Bye.